Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Through It Therapist Eyes podcast with Chris Gazdick and Craig Graves.
Welcome to another edition, Mr. Graves. How are you?
Man, I'm doing really good. How are you?
That's good. I'm in a good mood today.
Good.
I'm in a good mood. Welcome to another edition of the podcast. We invite you to see the world through the lens of a real mental health and substance abuse therapist. Have you seen any football playing off our last couple episodes, Craig?
Nope. I haven't even thought about football
man.
since the last show.
You have to listen to the last couple shows with Dr. Ted Spickler and Tacit Knowledge. We were doing some
Subliminal messages.
Yes, where we still have our goal to create emotional growth. Please being aware it's not the delivery of therapy services in any way. And you can give us feedback. We have different developing things on the website through a therapist's eyes. The emotional human experience. Let's figure this thing out together. Playing off our last couple of shows, Craig. I was looking around. I told you, man, I had no idea what we were going to do next. And as I was kind of looking at things, I was really fascinated with those last two shows. And I've been thinking about it in my therapy office, and I'm incorporating it into just the way I think about things. And so what I did is I took a topic, problem-solving skills, right? And I want to try to play off of sort of what we learned from Ted's book and his talk, and sort of weave it into something that everybody's heard about, problem solving. I mean, that's a big part of mental health, right?
Yeah.
So I want to kind of talk about problem solving because we haven't yet. We talked about decision making, which is related, but problem solving is something that we all do, but incorporating in this tacit knowledge in the subconscious mind and sort of a little bit about the way the brain works. I thought that might be a nice playoff of the last couple of shows. What do you think? You okay with that?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Or are you going to take us in a totally different direction? And
no, you're the boss, man.
Else, man.
You're the boss. I'm just a sidekick.
We gotta get you in charge of a topic one night, man. Give my head and brain a break.
I got a couple ideas I haven't shared with you.
No, actually, there are a couple ideas you have shared with me.
Yeah, well, the Unbeatable Mind show.
No, there was the
book show we did.
I think there was a guest thing that you were talking about, and you were going to talk to somebody or something.
Well, Dan Miller was kind of my thing,
that was totally you. That was totally you.
Yeah.
No, there was a couple things you were talking about. You may have told me, but
I got some more ideas. Stay tuned, folks.
So what? How are we going to get to know Craig Graves more? I think I'm 4 up on your 1.
I think I did the last one, though.
You did.
No, wait a minute now. No, I did the fun fact.
I don't think we did 159.
No, we haven't done one yet.
Let's pretend I did, and you had some cool stuff you were doing, because you gave us a teaser, man. Before we all forget about the teaser, you were like, well, I'll talk more about that in future shows.
Yeah, I'm kind of not ready to go there yet. It's coming, though.
Okay. We'll leave it be. Let me come up with something. What about bicycling? No, I tell you, I got a kayak.
Did we already talk about that?
Did we? Well, I'm excited about it.
We might have. I don't know.
Did we?
Yeah, you told me you were going to go down to the ocean and...
God, I think that would be fantastic.
Do some backwater kayaking?
Definitely open water ocean kayaking would be kind of scary. I'd have to build up to that, because you get out in the ocean, you get out a little ways, man, in a little boat. It's kind of intimidating. But.
Yeah, next thing you know, you're like lost at sea for 10 days.
Well, seriously, I had a client I was talking to, and he did that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he challenged himself. He's going out to an island or whatever, and he didn't realize that you don't have to go out very far before you can't see the land.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that, but he must have just been paddling out there and whatever, and he turned around and he couldn't see.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And he really, it's, for those of you making fun of me right now, I'm telling you, like, that stuff is really pretty freaky.
How did he get back?
I've kind of forget. It's been a while, so I forget the end of the story, man, but he got turned around, freaked out, and really panicked. Obviously, he just, I guess, gathered his awareness, maybe looked at the sun or something. I don't think he made it to the island. He went back to land. But
scary stuff.
Yeah.
I would recommend staying in the backwater somewhere, man.
Yeah, looking at houses and stuff.
Yeah, a good buddy of mine used to go down the Charleston area, down in there and put in. I think that's where he would go.
Yeah, that's where
he and his
wife. He
and his wife had kayaks, and I think his kids did at the time. But anyway.
Yeah. So let's launch in a little bit. Problem-solving skills and what we're talking about with that. there's different aspects to this, and I guess I thought I'd warm us up by kind of looking at a couple of different areas of life to get us to thinking about when do we want to use these problem-solving skills, and how does it really work, and how does it really happen? I guess before I do, broadly speaking, Mr. Graves, what do you think problem-solving skills? Do you ever use them? What are they? How do you problem solve?
Yeah, man, I've been in technology and IT for 20, 23, 24 years probably. So I started out doing help desk and stuff like that. So that's all about problem solving, troubleshooting, if you will, eliminating things and trying to get down to the root cause of the issue.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's lots of methods that people have found to do that. I think we talked about it with tacit learning, taking a break and coming back, and boom, there's your answer. I mean, that was a big theme.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I said this, but most of my aha moments have come as a result of trying to figure out a technology problem, whether it's writing a piece of code or trying to make some gadget work or a piece of hardware work or software. You can get so caught up into that. And people will say, just step away, just step away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to do because I want to get it solved and I want to stay on it till it does. But really, I have found that if I can step away and go do something else, a lot of times it's an aha moment when the answer does come.
It's so funny about
like,
tacit knowledge.
Go try this, and you go try that, and it works.
Yeah, it's so funny. Solve a problem by stop working on it.
Yeah.
That's it.
That actually has happened to me on multiple occasions in technology. When Dr. Spickler was talking, I think a lot of the answers that come are just maybe subtly, right? But all the aha moments I think I've had have been related to trying to fix some kind of technology issue.
Well, that's a big statement. Because I want to focus on problem solving, I guess, obviously with mental health or emotions and relationships and such for today. But that's a big statement. I mean, I feel like, wouldn't you have a lot of aha moments about yourself when you're in a crisis situation? You figure stuff out. I
can't think of any specific examples right now, but maybe so.
Yeah, because I do. I mean, I do. I'll be just pondering things, watching my birds in the backyard, and kind of just have stuff dawn on me of things about parenting or things about marriage and just things about even childhood and just things your brain works on and looks at. So I bet you've had a lot more outside.
Probably have. I just can't think of anything right now.
Yeah. So let's warm up with where do we do problem solving, at least in emotions and stuff. And I wanted to put this in italicized, so I need my glasses for that. It's weird. Italicized for vision. That's like bad. If you notice that. I don't like it. Where do we do problem solving? Of course, the answer is everywhere. But let's warm up with some particular environments. So personal relationships was one of the things that came to mind. And, that's obviously marriage or dating. By personal relationships, I'm talking about people that are kind of closer, maybe really, closer friends, that type of thing. So we're always learning about other people, and I thought, can we call that maturity? So anytime I think that you are in a relationship with somebody, problems are definitely going to come up. That's just normal. If you don't have anything to work through with even a friend, then you're probably missing some things, I would think, there's going to be stuff that pops up with different personality traits and different intentions, different understandings, even with friends, and certainly, with closer relationships than that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So if you look at this, I thought from an order of priority, God, self, spouse, etc. Right? Do we examine, from an order of priority how this stuff happens? So your creator. Do we ever really think about problems here? I mean, because if you're not realizing that you're in your spiritual life or in your creator experience, or even in your meditation or whatever your beliefs might be, I think a lot of people don't think about problem solving there.
In terms of the creator?
Yeah.
Or your spiritual life?
Yeah.
No, I don't think they do.
Yeah. There's no problems there. It's perfect.
I think I got problems. I want him to solve them. But if that's where you're going, I'm with you.
Yeah, but do we think about, well, how much do we really spend on that? What kind of problems are in that relationship? I think that we're not sometimes putting our focal energy on that, and I would argue we need to.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think that order of priority, we say that because it sounds good,
Mm-hmm.
but I think a lot of times we don't live that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we put work first. It's on
Yeah.
the bottom.
Or ourselves even first.
Or last.
Yeah.
Some people really put that last. So even the way of ordering the priorities there, I challenge people to think about that. Is a relationship with the Creator that you have with Him, or some would even say her, do you look at that? Do you work on that? Do you work with that relationship?
Yeah.
I would say you need to.
Yeah, when I was in fraternity, we used to have to when we were our pledges. When I was pledging, we'd have to interview the brothers. So
Okay.
you had to fill out a form. It was an interview, so it was a way to get to know somebody, And so one of the questions was, "What are your interests?" And the standard answer that every brother, almost every brother, gave was God, family, Delta Sig. But on Friday night at 3 a.m., nobody's thinking about God then, man.
Probably not. Probably not. I think they are not.
Yeah.
And or they start thinking about it the most.
or they're saying, "Please God, I'll never drink
help
again.
Help me! Oh my gosh,
I'll never take another drink.
I'm never going to do that again." How about self? Right? Do we definitely become naive if we deny that problems exist here?
Yeah. I think that we are naive in a lot of ways about ourselves because I didn't do anything wrong.
How many times do you hear that?
It's not me.
It's always the other person.
Yeah, I didn't do anything.
I'm the greatest business partner. If the people would just, I'm the best armchair quarterback there is, Craig, man. if the Steelers would just listen to me talking about winning on first down and third down, it'd be great.
You should be the coach.
Yeah.
If you were the coach, they'd win the Super Bowl every year.
I mean, maybe every other year. Purposeful examination of self is where we want to apply problem solving, is my point there.
It's hard to look in the mirror, though, and say, "Hey, I was wrong," or
people
in your buddy's eyes or your wife's eyes, and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I messed this thing up,"
Right.
I told you my story about therapy,
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've thought about that a lot of times actually since.
Yeah, I thought we're gonna get her fixed. And, everything's gonna be awesome. And man, I was in for a rude awakening.
All the therapist did is talk about you in your brain.
Well, he didn't all talk about me, but he pointed out where I was wrong,
Yeah.
and I heard loud and clear what he was saying.
So that leads to spouse, God, self, spouse. Like I wrote on show preps. Yeah, right. Applications here galore, galore. Marital relationships, and I mean, and ironically, it's interesting. Maybe do people think about problems there more than maybe any of the areas of life? Maybe kids and parenting is next, but
in the marital relationship,
yeah, trying to apply problem solving. I think we probably do that a lot consciously there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And same with kids. Parenting. Well, same with kids, but I have a different point. If you're thinking about problem solving, how do we apply it there? Listen, we talked about love and logic. By the way, if you like this episode, I listed out several. Number 40, conflict resolution in mental health. Number 27, decision making, trust your gut or use your brain. 19, family boundaries. And then this one was number 15. You really want to check out love and logic parenting strategies because when we're talking about problem solving in parents, I think I want to focus on this probably when we get down to parenting because we try to fix our kids' problems. And honestly, one of the big goals of love and logic is let them fix their own problems.
Yeah.
There's a revolutionary, different, upside down idea than the way I think we pretty commonly, almost universally, fall into traps with.
Yeah. We want to solve the problems for them, but we need to let them solve the problems if we can.
Even those of us that feel like we've got pretty good boundaries and, it's hard to watch your kids screw up and keep screwing up and to let them figure it out.
Yeah, definitely is.
When it's such a simple answer.
Yeah.
Get a shower before the evening so that you don't have this problem in the morning, man.
Yeah.
It's whatever solution, but next and then is family.
Did you wait a minute? Did you mention the surviving infidelity episode?
Not.
That's a huge problem, right?
Oh yeah, that would be that. You're right. That would be good application of problem solving skills, because I think we named it something different, didn't we?
I can't remember. I'll look it up before we wrap up here.
And make a note. That's a good one to add in too. Family, less active, but still, long-term factors, get denied. So I mean, when you're dealing with problem solving, do you think about family? I would submit that's probably a little bit less active. Comes around during Christmas time, holidays are rolling up, Craig. We're probably going to be problem solving then. But do you want to wait till then, or do you want to kind of be doing that all year round? Just a thought. Then I mentioned friends. The closer the friendship, well, the more likely it is that, it's going to be some sort of issues that you got to work through. It's a good question to ask yourself when you're assessing, your friendships. What do we have? How close am I really to this person? Well, good question. Can a friendship that I have with this person withstand working through a problem? Can we do that? And if you really can and you can effectively, that's probably a pretty good friend. If you're like, I'm not bringing that up to that guy, well, you're probably not that close.
Yeah.
Right. And then lastly, work. Well, much less active, but we all need to be active in a big area of our life, work and problem solving at work, so that we can be, productive.
Do you find that most friendships can or cannot survive a conflict?
Not sure. Let me think. What says you? I
don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is.
I think I would hope yes, because, friend is we both agreed when we talk about friendship, man, that's a big word to me. If I call you friend, I hope we can disagree. I hope we can talk. I hope we can figure something out. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep things from you, and you're not really going to know what I'm thinking. So I think so.
Yeah, I had a friend, same guy that had the kayaks.
Okay.
Yeah, and we worked together at our company, and so I was managing a team of guys, and on the weekends he was using the guys that were on my team to move equipment from one building to the other, and his style was more direct than mine, and so he and the guys had run in.
A little forward thinking, is that what you mean?
Yeah. Great guy though. Very intelligent, one of the smartest people I know. If he's listening, maybe he'll figure out I'm talking about him. But anyway, one Monday morning, they'd been moving equipment over the weekend, and one of the guys and this guy started disagreeing about something in an open area where we're sitting in a bunch of cubes.
Ooh.
So
the crowd gather around.
Yeah, well, it turned out that way.
Oh, wow.
So the voices started to get raised a little bit. So I stood up, and I got involved in the conversation. And the next thing you know, the three of us are standing there, very loudly. I won't say screaming, but having a pretty heated conversation. People are looking over their cue, see what's going on, because it's starting to get pretty intense.
Sounds dramatic.
And so everybody finally calmed down and sit down and went back to work. So about 11:30, the dude comes over to my cube and he says, "Hey man, what are we doing for lunch?" And I said, I don't know. Where you want to go, man? And it was just like the whole thing was gone.
Yeah.
We just continued. We went to lunch. Had how was your weekend? Yeah, it was a family.
Right.
It was just great, and it was really an awesome kind of experience. This is a guy right here I can, go to have a shouting match with. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, we're still pals. Sounds
like that was actually, unbeknownst at the time, a little bit of a trust building thing, really.
Potentially so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't see him much anymore. We don't work together anymore, but he's, one of my best friends, I would say.
Problem solving, I guess part of what I'm doing here and looking at the order of priorities with relationships and warming us up with the different places that we do problem solving in is to kind of urge people to actually do that. I'm afraid that we all universally really like to avoid problems. Avoiding them does not make them go away. I should write that quote down, right?
Yeah, you're right. Avoiding them doesn't make them go away, and I think you're probably right. People, I don't like conflict, man. I'm not a conflict guy, at all. And so, I'm more of a peacemaker kind of person,
right? Right.
And so, yeah, you're right. But it's better to get those issues out and get them addressed and move on from them.
Don't need to every single time. I mean, there's a time to hold your tongue, but I want to get confidence built and understand the payoffs when you actually do these relationship problem stuff. I'll move on to warming us up. Well, we're kind of going strong right now, but
real quick, that was episode 24, recovering from an affair.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds more familiar. So business partnerships, I think, Craig, is a big area where people very much tend to avoid problems. They'll just brush over things and hope things go away, and it's very much, I said that if problems are avoided, they'll build, and often they dissolve due to this problem in business partnerships.
Yeah, partnerships don't usually end well.
No,
in my experience, and wise people like Dan Miller would say, don't go into a partnership.
Yeah,
it's a good way to lose a friend.
Effective business relationships, I believe, I see incorporate, regular check-in type conversations, business planning, or you might call it, but conversing at a minimum. Business meetings as a group are important. Then I wrote also, you must have fun together for business partnerships. I mean, I think you and I chit-chat a lot about our show even, and I think that's important, and working through when you got a difference or an opinion or a view or a problem. If you don't, man, stuff will end.
Mm-hmm.
It just flat will end.
That's right.
And in business, it's too easy to just bail. And yeah, I mean, they make it. They make the metaphor a lot of times in business circles. Business partnership is like a marriage. Well, I mean, it a lot of times is.
It's probably worse than that, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of ways.
Not that marriage is not good. I'm just saying, marriage does end in divorce a lot.
Yeah.
So do business partnerships.
So parenting, think about all the information kids are picking up during all their interactions with you, especially when young. So this is another italicized thing. So I'm sprinkling in this tacit knowledge thing. Your brain is working on problems, and we talked about that on the show. Kids are constantly learning from you, and if you're solving their problems for them, they're not going to learn. And then it occurred to me as I was thinking about this, people do tend to learn the most quickly when they're young. I think that's a psychological fact. If you teach a kid a language, like, dude, they pick it up like amazingly fast when they're little guys. You and I trying to pick up a language now would be much more difficult. And I think there's something about the brain in that regard, Craig. I can't speak intelligently about it, but I got my theories. But my point is here also, we need to allow them to see us work through problems. Acting like, that just comes from nowhere, these solutions, just doesn't help them develop, their ability to do this. So when you're teaching your kids, highlighting the idea that problem-solving skills need to be taught to them so that they can execute them into problems that they have. Sound like a good idea?
Yeah, man.
And that's a big foundation of the Love and Logic people.
Yeah.
I also wrote avoid power struggles. That's enemy number one in parenting. I've quoted that, I've said that many times. Enemy number one to parenting is power struggles. So what is a problem? Let's back it up. Where are we here? Take a break soon. We're fine. Let's think about what is a problem. That sounds weird. You would think but I don't know if people necessarily, even if they think about problem solving purposely, they might need to, because tacit learning, right? Directing your subconscious to work on something, you've got to direct it.
Yeah, true.
So what are you going to direct it on?
The solution.
What is a problem? When do you need a solution? It is a death knell when there's a problem and you don't even know it's a problem. That's my point. We've got to know.
It's a problem and you don't even know it's a problem. I don't think.
Yes.
I don't know, man. I mean, I see your definition here on the show notes of a problem. But what do we think? Really, everything's a problem, right? I mean, not every, but I dropped a smoothie that I was drinking the other day, and it was in a glass jar. And when it hit the counter, I had taken one sip, so it was a full jug, right? A full jar of goodness. And it slipped out of my hands and smash. And so that was a problem, right? Cleaning up that mess was a problem.
Yeah.
So I don't think we think about things in terms of this is a problem. I mean, do you see what I'm kind of maybe trying to go with that? It's like we just see things as they maybe are.
Yes. Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does. And I'm looking for us to be more thorough or broader or trying to develop insight about more of what that problem is. Now, let's come back to that. Let's use this, right? So a lot of times when I'm dealing with grief, I don't know if we did a show on grief yet. We need to. I've got a process that we go through that's not just like the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, stages of grief. I'm sure you've heard of anger, denial, and whatever, bargaining. Well, one of the things that is a part of the process in dealing with grief, these people purport is identifying the loss. And in grief, let's just take somebody dying. Well, there's a lot more that you lose. And if you don't really identify all that you're really losing, you really kind of can't even direct your subconscious mind or your focused mind, to deal with it. So if your grandma dies, well, part of what you're losing is she's not going to be there at your wedding. So you're losing your grandmother's presence at your wedding years later. You kind of, see what I mean? You look at the full depth of that. Well, who am I going to go talk to? Because my grandma's my go-to person, man. I've got a problem in school, man. I go to my grandma and talk with her. She's so nice to me. Well, that's also a loss. Who's my go-to person now?
That's interesting, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's more to it.
Yeah. That's interesting. So when things like that happen, when we have major things happen to us, or maybe even things that aren't really major, but those events can affect our emotional state on a subconscious level in ways we don't even know, right?
Exactly.
That's interesting.
Exactly.
I never even thought about that. I was reading about the emotional boo today, background of obviousness, if you will. And that's what Mark Divine says is our boo is our program. So we've been programmed throughout life with these events and things that happen to us.
You talked to me about that. It's fascinating.
He's talking about clearing out your boo and dealing with those past events. And, you have to grow emotionally. And, I just never thought about the impacts that we don't even realize when we lose a friend or a grandmother or somebody to death or a job or go through a major thing like a bankruptcy or something. I mean, I'm just throwing things out there, but there's probably emotional baggage that we end up with that we don't even know about.
You don't even know. And I've thought a lot about that in therapy. I mean, that's what happens a lot of times in my therapy office. You bring a set of experiences, and if you think about tacitly learning, well, what are you tacitly learning? So people will have behaviors or thought patterns or all kinds of things in your boo, if you will. I love how people rename stuff and we run with stuff, but it's all the same stuff and it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Right? You believe that those maladaptive, everyone loves the word dysfunctional behavior or thought patterns or whatever, that's your norm and that's your normal. And if you don't even know that your norm is off, you'll continue going in that direction, not even unawares to it. Mm-hmm. And that's the value. I'll make the point, unintended, perfectly placed though, in problem solving. Use other people. You've got to have other objective positions a lot of times in this because you might not even know what your problem is and what your assumed realities are. The schemas that he mentioned?
Yeah.
Your worldview?
Yeah.
It's a big deal when you don't even know it's off.
So who are those other people, Chris?
Friends. Therapists. Family.
Yeah.
Big time friends.
Yeah.
I mean, they're objective. They're people. I'll tell you this: people that are willing to tell you what they see.
Do you think everybody should have a therapist?
That's a side note and a good question.
And the reason I ask is because I've been going through this unbeatable mind, and
yeah,
and I think a lot of people, men maybe especially, think that therapy's for wimps and that kind of thing, And I wish I would have taken some notes on this study I'm doing because, Divine. I keep talking about Divine, Mark Divine, and this guy was honor man in his SEAL platoon. I mean, this is a bad dude, right?
Right.
And he's like, people need therapists, man. And he calls them. He says that the Western world has kind of put them in that category. Therapies for wimps, whatever. He says, what if we called it an emotional coach?
Right.
Would that make it more
Appealing.
acceptable or appealing?
Yeah.
But a lot of this thing I'm going through now, he's recommending that you have a therapist to help you clear up these past emotional issues that you might not even know about.
Absolutely. I paused there because we're taking an offshoot side note, but that's all right because it's definitely about problem solving. I really have thought a lot about this, and I see it developing, and I like the developing reality because the answer to your question is yes, I do. I really do, and I see it happening, Craig, because the mental health, psychology, therapy realm has been much more mainstream than ever in my life before, and it's a relatively new thing, particularly. We used to call them analysts back in the day. To have an analyst, that's what we used to call it. We're analyzing your situation and your circumstances and your process and your processing. Well, it's a lot like a general practitioner doctor if you think about it. I feel like there is definitely going to be a time in the not so distant future where it is absolutely a regular and routine thing, even if it's kind of 4 checkups once a month or even once every 6 months kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that there's going to be a time where it is a regular and routine experience that somebody has, just like going to your annual checkup.
Let me ask you this, man. Do you see people? What's the process to close it out with a therapy client? I mean, do you have people come in and you work on stuff for 6 months, a year and a half, and you say, okay, I think you're at a point now where you can just call me when you need me?
That's an excellent topic. I don't know how to answer that so shortly. Seriously, we don't have a pen right here. We need to write that one down and do a show on that one.
Okay,
that'd be an excellent show. Will you get that?
Yeah, I definitely will.
Yeah, because we need to do that.
Okay.
Honestly, because I think a lot of therapists, it's something that we don't think about enough in our field.
Yeah.
I give you the behind-the-scenes view with that. The short I did hear a long time ago that basically you spend, what did she say? Oh, it was right out of school when I did this in-service training at this mental health center I was at. I think she said that you want to spend a third of the time that you've had in therapy terminating. So if you've been in therapy for a year, you'd spend 3 months terminating. Now, I don't know what kind of standard that is, but she was pretty experienced and much more experienced than me at the time when she said it. So it's something that gets missed because a lot of times, I never get the end of the story. It's just people stop. And we don't get to do that.
They just quit showing up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stop scheduling. It just ends, and I never get to. You don't get to button up that end, and I think
but
a lot of
you do have clients who you end the therapy with, and however you do it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we talk about it very, very clearly. People that are thorough probably talk about that in the front end. How we wind down and whatnot. I'm doing so much in the initial. I don't personally, and probably could, but there's a value in winding down. I think the big thing there is honestly, I think clients are oftentimes very uncomfortable telling me, "Hey, I'm thinking I'm wanting to wrap up." And when they do that, I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. Well, let's review. Let's maybe meet a time or two." Hey, that rhymes.
Yeah, when my wife and I were going through our issues, we saw a therapist, and when we decided to separate and divorce, I saw him several times individually after that whole thing. And, there came a time when he said, "Hey, Craig, if you need me, call me."
Yeah.
And that was kind of it.
Yeah.
And you know who it was because I've told you. I won't say his name. But that's kind of how that, wrapped up, if you will.
Yeah, and sometimes this is just my bias. Do I want to put this out there or not? I guess I will. I'm not saying that was that circumstance because I know that is kind of a short stop that what happens with people, and sometimes it's just, okay, you got your stuff kind of worked out. We've done this and accomplished our goal. And
that was kind of what it was like.
Yeah, and some people operate that way. Some people operate with a very short-term therapy model. I tend not to. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that are developing with all this dynamic life change.
Well, I don't think this guy did normally, and you probably know better than me.
Yeah, but, so a lot of times when that happens, I feel like the therapist might be stuck. Like they're not clear in their own mind, when when they say that, they might not know, well, what are we trying to accomplish here? And I think the therapists have felt stuck. I'll give you my tell if you're ever working with me in therapy. My tell in the way I deal with that is if I'm in the middle of a therapy relationship with somebody and I just kind of start getting stuck in my brain, I'm not sure what we're working on or what direction we're going, because sometimes that happens. I mean, people look for us for guidance in that. I'll look at you and I'll ask, well, let's kind of review here. Where we've been and what is it that you really want to accomplish? That's my tell. That means I'm stuck and I'm holding myself to a higher standard to figure out with you where we need to go. And I find that resets us. Sometimes it's actually they're thinking about it and they say, I don't know, man, I think I'm done. And we end up terminating and that works out that way. Other times it really resets us and we figure out different directions that make sense to go in. So, yeah, that's a show, though.
All right.
It's an excellent question.
We'll make a note of that.
Please do. Back to your crushed, beautiful, wonderful smoothie there, right?
Oh, yeah, and I was calm through that whole process, by the way.
You seem calmer. I think I mentioned that.
Explode when
really?
That happened like I normally would have.
That's pretty neat, man. I was thinking that we talked about that here, but that was before the mics came on. What you're going to use, I think you said, yeah, for one of our shorts. What is it that was the problem there, though? It wasn't that you cut yourself and you got to clean this crap up. I would submit to you that there was more. If you think about it, what are more of the problems? Yeah, anger, irritability. What am I going to eat now for breakfast? Now am I going to be late now? Do I just skip this or do I?
The biggest thing for me in that particular instance was like I got to clean this crap up and I got stuff to do.
Right.
And I had stuff all over the floor, and all over the counter, all over the rug, and it's just a huge mess. It took 20 minutes to clean it all up.
Oh gosh. So that is a really, really simple piece. But let's wrap up here before we take a break, Craig, and understand, Merriam-Webster says, a question raised for inquiry, consideration, or solution, a proposition in mathematics or physics stating something to be done, and an intricate, unsettled question, a source of perplexity. I love that word, man. The source of perplexity, distress, or vexation. I love vexation, too. It's another cool word. Difficulty in understanding or accepting, I have a problem with your saying that. They actually said it's an adjective, too, dealing with a problem of conduct or social relationship or problem play. Difficult to read, difficult to deal, rather, with a problem child. I think my point here insofar as to sum it up, what is a problem? You have to think about what a problem is that you're working on in depth. So your simple little situation with a smoothie can really lead to a lot of effort on a lot of other problems. Let me give you a quick example. I literally had an alcoholic one time talk to me, and a simple situation led to a problem-solving process that was dynamic. Dynamic. And he was just sitting on the couch drinking a beer like he does every other day, and his daughter was kind of down at his feet playing. And he was watching a TV program or sporting event or whatever. And it was just an ironic moment that showed him, call it an aha moment. There's the tacit learning. He was probably working on this for a long time. Knowing what I know about addiction, I can guarantee you he was doing problem solving for a while. Because this little moment, just as he was reaching down for his beer at the table, his little girl reached up to be grabbed and embraced. And in that split second, he problem solved and decided that he reached for his daughter and he never reached for another beer again. He was sober for the rest of his life.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Now, it's amazing because he can go through that process and problem solve that quickly in a moment that's very poignant for him with his daughter. But it's also interesting insofar as tacitly learning. He was working on that for a while, and he clipped into an aha moment right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how this stuff is intertwined. How about we take a break on that and come back to the rest of the show?
Let's do it. All right, folks, Chris and I have a new way for you to support the podcast. If you go to our website, throughatherapisteyes.com, and click on the whole family products link on our site, it will take you to the whole family products website, where there's 126 different nutritional supplements, anti-aging supplements, CBD oils. There's over 126 products there. And if you purchase after clicking on the link from our site, then we will get a commission from that purchase. 126 products, folks. We've talked about CBD and some of the benefits of that on the show. There's many different flavors, different dosages of CBD on the site. There's some roll-on creams for muscle soreness. There are straight up oils, other kind of creams that you can use, CBD related. I used to sell these products on Amazon when I was running an Amazon business, and they have natural hormone creams. And those were some of my best sellers, Chris. Natural progesterone creams. There's a cream called MenoBalance for ladies who are experiencing some symptoms of menopause. A PMS balance that's also for the same kind of reasons or same kind of issues. And those were some of the best sellers that I have, and they got the best reviews. I know the folks who own this company, a great lady named Brenda, and she has a heart for helping people. And I know that these are high quality, good products.
I've been talking about it with you, and I believe you are correct. I'm asking a funny question, but a serious question at the same time on this. Do they got things for menopause?
They do have like
testosterone and stuff?
Testosterone kind of
got all
hormone.
that?
It's not testosterone, but what these creams do is they enhance the body's ability to produce those kind of things naturally.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's not straight up testosterone or anything like that. There's sleep supplements there. We did a show on sleep with Dr. Stafford. There's like a melatonin cream. There's also some sleep supplements. I'm not sure what they are or what's in them, I'll say. But there's sleep aids on there too. Lots of good stuff, man.
I'll tell you what, if I hang out with you long enough, you're getting me sold on this whole processed foods thing as a problem, and diet, nutrition, and exercise and everything, but you ain't going to get me in the cold bath, man.
Oh, yeah. Cold therapy's good too.
How about we get back to the show?
Sounds good. Thanks.
So what can be said of specific problem-solving skills? Let's kind of launch into what the heck we're really talking about. I did pop a little website up, which kind of gave an interesting focal awareness, step-by-step process of problem solving. Now, I said it that way playing off of a show last week, right? What do you remember us talking about when it comes to step-by-step stuff, generally speaking?
Oh, man. You
Right?
put me on the spot, and I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, the brain's always learning, solving problems and stuff. You know, we put in our head the process of step 1, step 2, step 3, you know, this type of thing that we try to purport is the way to learn how to do something. I'm kind of poo-pooing that a little bit. I'm not saying it's all bad by any measure, please. All the therapists listening out there, don't crucify me. I know we can do that a lot well, but do you remember what he was talking about how do you really learn? How do you really solve problems? Can you tell someone how to ride a bike?
No. You can, I guess, give tips. I don't know.
Right?
But you have to learn that.
It is an experience.
Yeah, trial and error.
I don't know when in my therapy career I really started to change the verbology that I used. I've been doing it for a little while now. I might say half of my career or something. I say therapy experience. I don't know if you noticed that. I call it a therapy experience.
I think I do. Now that you mentioned that, I have heard you call it that.
You know, I don't really like to say, hey, you know, go to therapy. I like to say, hey, go see what a therapy experience might do. experience. Because, dude, you are throwing around so many neurological, memory-based, biologically based life experiences and life relationships with your whole brain's maturity, emotional, psychologically based learning stuff. Like, it's dynamic. So, it's funny. I make fun of these articles people write. Maybe I'll start writing articles too and say, the 5 best components of a relationship are, right? The 5 steps to problem solving, the 7 best business principles. See all this. I think it's much more than that. I think it's. I'm gonna go through here. This article, they has some other things on there about problem solving. I'm gonna just kind of picked out the way they look at a problem solving process. And there's lots of different things like this, and I teach them, and I do them in my office, by the way. But I want to make the point that, and I think we have throughout this show today, and that's why I did it right after the tacit learning, because, man, some people, particularly in the second one, I think you said you got kind of lost at one point. It's hefty stuff. I mean, it's depthy, meaty, science-based kind of stuff that we use all the time. And it's interlaced into this problem-solving skills.
But there are steps you can take when learning to ride a bike to help yourself along, but you have to experience it and figure it out on your own, right?
Yeah.
So, step 1, take off the training wheels. Step 2, find a grassy meadow with a slight incline. Step 3, hold the bike and
I think I want to say there's tips instead of steps. Is that a better way to say it?
That might be a better way to say it.
Because particularly when you're doing something like cooking, I can give you tips. I can give you maybe factoids. But it's going to be just like a bike, really hard for me to give you a step-by-step process of cooking an omelet. If you never touched any food, you're 7 years old, and I'm giving you these steps. You just like a bike, you cannot do it from step 1, 2, 3, and so on. You might not even know how to crack the egg right.
True.
Egg shells will invariably fall into the omelet.
True, but I would argue that I could give my 11-year-old daughter a recipe for an omelet, and she could do it.
Has she cooked anything before?
She can scramble eggs, and she can cook a little bit of stuff.
See, but she's already learned.
Perhaps.
A lot of what she would need to do that.
Yeah, perhaps.
She's already learned. Which is interesting, too, about problem solving and tacit knowledge I picked up and learned from our last couple episodes is when you learn something emotionally just the same about yourself, you then have an automatic process that is healthier, and you add on to that. So you go to something more complicated and focus on that, and more we grow to what Maslow would call the tip of Maslow's hierarchy of needs back from Psych 101. We're trying to be self-actualized.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you don't get that without the foundations being laid, and you don't get foundations being laid if you come from, say, an alcoholic dysfunctional family. See how all this problem solving is a big deal in the emotion world and how we do it. So what are the steps? Let's try. How about that?
Sounds good.
And let's throw in tacit knowledge.
Fire it up. You going to write an article?
As we go. No, they did. I'm checking out a part of their article, to be honest. Okay. Problem identification. A, that's number 1. Okay. We talked about that, I think already. Did we So here's their, what is it, through A through F. Problem identification. B, structure the problem. C, look for possible solutions. D, make a decision. E, implement that. F, monitor and seek feedback. Like that's the, what is that, 5 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, F is 6th letter in the alphabet. That was tough. My brain must be getting tired. So we got a 6-step problem-solving process here. Problem identification, structure the problem, look for problem solutions, make a decision, implement them, and monitor and seek feedback, right? So that's the process. You ready to go solve problems?
Yeah, let's do it.
Choose one. Let's demonstrate.
The problem?
No, I'm being facetious there. But so here's some interesting questions with each one of those, though, if we look at it a little bit closer. Problem identification, we did look at that a little closer earlier, but I questioned, do we identify problems tacitly? We've talked a lot about that. Or is this more of a logical process? Telling your brain to work out a problem would seem to indicate that this is not automatic. But sometimes it probably is, but this occurs to me with, how can we get maladaptive behaviors tacitly? And I talked about that earlier. I forgot that I wrote that down. It came to me twice when I was doing show prep and then when we was talking, right? Maladaptive problems become tacitly learned. And if we're really not doing a good job of problem identification, do we even know they're there? And we talked about that. So how about structure the problem? This seems to be more of a focal awareness, thing when we're trying to structure it. So just keep in mind, we're learning about problems and solutions a lot. When we're not structuring it, it's just happening. If you want a problem to be solved and you're not wanting to avoid it, like you and I being a conflict avoider person, maybe, if you're not wanting to avoid it, it'll happen. You can structure it or not structure it, but you begin thinking about how am I going to solve this? I wonder if focal awareness and structuring something is really that important. It's helpful, particularly with tips. Look for possible solutions is brainstorming, I guess, right? I had the thought that this is where the magic of what we discussed with Dr. Spickler really happens, in my opinion. How the fact that our brains are working on problems even when we don't become or actively consciously aware. That's just so cool. Didn't have any applications to tacit learning, but make a decision implementing it. And I think it is important to monitor and seek feedback. They talked about it. Once you think you solved a problem, man, you're probably not being thorough if you're not evaluating your solutions and outcomes and that kind of thing, right? So what do you think? What do you hear with problem solving? The 6-step solution.
A 6-step solution.
I don't know what they called it on the website, but
is
it helpful in
so I can,
talking about a specific thing that you do, specific things to try.
Yeah, this is it's interesting. It's problem identification. Like I said, I don't think we think about things as problems as much as I do just things that happen. Structure the problem. Look for possible solutions. It sounds a lot like other process, like an OODA Loop kind of process. Make a decision, implementation, monitor, and seek feedback.
OODA Loop, what's that?
That's a process that a fighter pilot developed in the military. I think he was Air Force, and I can't think of his name right now. But you observe, you orient, and you make a decision on what you're going to do, and then you act.
You got to act.
And then you repeat the process.
As a part of problem solving. Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds a lot like what I'm familiar with is the OODA Loop, at least to me.
I feel like that is what does that stand for?
OODA.
OODA Loop?
Observe.
Oh, okay.
Orient.
It's just a weird way to say it, man.
Decide and act.
OODA Loop, OODA Loop.
It's a process that just continues.
It'll certainly help you remember it, that's for sure.
Loop. Yeah.
OODA Loopy.
OODA Loop.
I'm feeling loopy, man. Could it be said that it doesn't matter what steps you're taking, if you're directing yourself towards problem solving, you're going to come up with solutions. And if you're courageous enough to try new things and to keep on trying new things and to have the persistence to continue working on this problem longer than you think you should have to work on this problem. I mean, if you put all that together, you're going to solve problems.
Yeah. You will. I think taking action is a huge thing. You have to take action to solve certain problems, and some people don't, depending on what the problem is.
Give a little foreshadowing. I thought next time we'd talk about stuck spots.
Stuck spots.
Right?
That's a good idea.
People get stuck, man, and lose faith in their ability to really actively work through something. And that's a bummer to me because this is hard. Problem solving is not easy. And I remember Ted talking about that. You got to have some persistence with this because problems do not just get fixed. And if you're not purposeful about it and allowing yourself to wade through that, people talk about sometimes, oh, I don't want to go to therapy. It's over and done with. That's long ago. I'm not going to wallow in the misery.
Mm-hmm.
No, man, it's not wallowing. It's walking in the experience of it.
Yeah.
And figuring out what you need to figure out so that you can be in a better place.
Yeah. And those experiences from the past that can hold you down, prevent you from doing new things and moving forward in your life.
Particularly trauma or things like that, where you get into massive fear-based states. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I wanna develop the sense with people that I'm working with that you really can do this. 100% of the time when I meet with somebody new, one of the things I talk about in my canned spiel that helps people understand what to expect is, how is life like? How do you want life to be like? And that's what I'm spending a lot of time with.
Mm-hmm.
I say that I would argue everybody I meet with for the first time, because I want you to understand that's what we're really trying to do. Dream up what you want in you. Dream up what you want life to be like. Problem solve to get there. That's in a nutshell what we're trying to do to grow and mature, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You remember that big craze Oprah kind of kicked off with The Secret?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The Secret.
The Secret.
I didn't read it. I didn't get into it, but I listened to a little bit of stuff. And I mean, we put all this stuff out into the universe and see what comes back to you and the karma of everything. What's the secret about? If you put your brain physically and emotionally into what you want to create, I would argue generally you'll get there.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you what you thought about the law of attraction, but I think you just answered it.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? I think that you'll get there when you're really emotionally pointing yourself in a particular direction. It's just so nerve-wracking to me when people don't know they need to go in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's identifying the problem, looking in the mirror, like you said. A lot of times that's where we screw up right from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how much time we got for discussion points. Let me read my sort of summary here, and I think there's some interesting things that we could really have spent a little more time on, but I don't want to get out of here as we're winding down before we kind of look at these things, right? So to me, as we've talked about this idea of problem solving, this seems to be an example sometimes of, how in mental health we become guided by exclusively focusing or too much focusing on focal awareness or the consciousness of it all, and avoid or miss the concepts taught by Dr. Spickler, how true learning really occurs, right? Understanding and truly developing emotional awareness. People talk about emotional intelligence. Well, that insight is hard, to say the least. I mean, people get very confused when they start wading around in the emotions. And so, let's say, well, I don't want to talk about it and waller in it. Well, I mean, again, developing insight about all this stuff, man, it's hard. At the least, it's hard. In the easiest situation, right? So the ability to remain diligent and persistent on the goals that you have in therapy and reviewing those goals and resetting, how do you want life to be like? The sad fact is, I heard once a long time ago, Craig, this may be wrong, and I actually tried to look it up, and I couldn't find it really easily enough, and so I said I'm not worried about it. It might have changed. But somebody once told me long ago, do you know the national average of the length of a therapy experience? That's it.
3 sessions.
That's it.
Really?
Now that to me sucks. Because
what do you find in your own practice?
I don't know. I thought about doing a study and kind of researching it and seeing how that works. I do not know.
DW pull some numbers together.
That would take a. Yeah, it'd be an interesting numbers crunching thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you, I have. I mean, I have people in a therapy experience in one form or another for several years, and I don't have a problem admitting that. I think that's some of the best work has been done after we've kind of gotten around and that's not, well, I don't know how common it is. I just don't know to answer your question, to be honest with you. I'd be curious.
Yeah.
But I have had long therapy experiences like that, and I'll tell you the best work is done sometimes when you get out of the presenting problem and you kind of get into the whole life of a person. That's part of the way I like to work, is really kind of figuring out, okay, let's look at this presenting problem. Let's get on to that. Let's deal with that, and let's figure out what got you in that. What is the big picture, and what all do we really need to understand about ourselves? Because I think that creates a more thorough, emotionally growing process.
Mm-hmm. I noticed you wrote down understanding and truly developing emotional awareness of ourselves. How does somebody do that?
That's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Truly developing emotional awareness. I mean, I don't know. Say more, because I'll think about it. I'll try to give an answer. Okay. Say more.
I don't know what else to say. I mean, how do you develop emotional awareness?
What do you wonder about that?
Well, I mean, how does somebody do that? I mean, emotions are anger, fear, what else? Jealousy, greed. I said anger, right?
You did.
How do you become aware that you're in an emotional state, and then what do you do about it?
Yeah, see, you did say more. I think you talk about meditation and developing structure in your life, and we've talked a lot about putting detail to fully developing an understanding of what the problem is and looking around all of that to see what feeds into that problem. I think you've got to be diligent and persistent and thorough and not short-minded and short-sighted into that process, because gosh, developing emotional awareness is involved, and I think that you can't do it alone sometimes. Even it's really helpful, again, to get outside objective feedback, friends or therapists or priests or neighbors. You remember that show, Home Improvement?
Yeah.
Right? What was that guy's name? The neighbor, man.
Tim Allen.
Tim. No, that was
the dude.
Yeah, what was the neighbor's name?
Oh, I can't remember. The
you
guy
never got to see his face.
Fence? Yeah.
Never got to see his face.
I wasn't a big fan. I didn't watch that show a whole lot. It was good when I did see it, but
he created objectivity for Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Yeah.
Please, audience, don't make fun of me for Tim the Toolman Taylor. I don't know where that came from. It just came to my brain. That's been years ago. A lot of our younger audience are probably like, who's Tim the Toolman Taylor? YouTube it. You'll see it. It's a nice 80s show. Or is that a 90s show or an 80s show?
It was probably a 90s show. I don't know.
Yeah. So I want us as therapists to really think about the full person, of course. It's one of the advantages of social work. We look at systems theory in social work, and it's a different way of looking at a person fitting into their system inside themselves, the system inside their marriage, the system inside their family, and how all of these systems interact in their extended family, and how that extended family system interacts with the system of a community, and the system of a school, and the system of an agency, and the system of a country. I mean, all these, you're dynamically involved in all of that, and you have to understand how you're interacting and how all those things are interacting together. And sorry, I just don't know oftentimes you think you can do that in 3 sessions.
Yeah.
And I think in many ways, honestly, here's another way I'll answer that question, Craig. Early on, I went to a Gestalt training seminar over several Saturdays while I was in school. Boy, that was loud. They wouldn't talk to you. That almost sounded like the old "you have mail" chime. What was that?
It was a news notification on my phone.
So this guy who was teaching us about Gestalt therapy made the point. He's like, you do a spot of work on something in your life cycle, and then you drop off. And then a little bit, few years later, months later, or years later, you kind of do another spot of work on that, and then you drop off. And so you have this flow throughout your life, And I've had lots of therapy experiences like that with people. We do therapy for 4 or 5 months. We shut her down, and they come back a year later, and we do therapy again for another 3, 4 months, and then we shut her down, and they come back a couple years later, and we do therapy for several months. I think you're not going to fix some of these problems like now. It is a process. And then once you fix part of the problem, you get to more complex part of the problems and tacitly learn on that.
Yeah, I was reading, the thing I told you I was reading about today, he says it's a lifetime process.
It really is. Back to your question, does everybody need a therapist or not?
Well, it sounds like the answer is yes. Yeah, he says it's a lifetime process, man,
I tell you, if you don't need a therapist for that, you really need a trusted friend, man, that you can really be raw with. Mm-hmm. To really have that person or those persons that you can be raw and genuine, and that friend or person is courageous enough to be able to give you honest feedback. Man, that right there is one of the most valuable things I think you can have in life. Mm-hmm. How's that for a statement?
Yeah. A good friend, right?
Right.
We did a show on friendship.
We did. They're important, and for all you just talking to your friends, be soft, be kind, be a good friend, but let them know, let them know what you're really seeing in a kind and loving way, so that you don't just go along with it and say, oh, sure, it's fine what you're doing. I don't want to upset you. I don't want to tell them what I'm really thinking. Nobody wants to hear that. You know what? If you're a friend, they need to hear that, and that's an okay thing to. It's an okay thing to do. So, how do we summarize? How do we take us out of here? Maybe we ready to taxi in for a landing?
Yeah, I think so. It's about time. I think you covered a lot.
Remember the 6 steps of problem solving?
Problem identification, structure the problem, look for possible solutions, make a decision, implementation, monitor and seek feedback.
I asked the question earlier, when do you want to apply problem-solving skills in the warming up?
I'd say to everything.
And all the time.
Isn't
that crazy?
Yeah.
Everything and all the time. Well, and well, you could take breaks. Of course, we want to take breaks, but your subconscious mind is doing that. But it's funny? Cognitive therapist in me, I don't like the word everyone, no one, every time you, I can never. Those words are usually very inaccurate. Mm-hmm. I like to make the joke when I'm making that point and helping somebody that uses those words a lot. Mm-hmm. I will say, I will always be a man. Well, in today's day and age, I guess you can't even say that.
I guess you can't.
Those words are very powerful. All means all, I've heard people say. Well, that's a lot of all. Everything. Mm-hmm. So, but you know what? Problem solving? Can we say all the time for just about everything?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's when we're doing this. Right. That is when we're doing this, whether we realize it or not. Do we know what a problem is fully when we're identifying something? Good part to have in a review.
Do we know what a problem is?
When we're facing something. Is it just that you're facing? Or are there other offshoots there to think about? Mm-hmm. It's just some things to think about.
A lot going on.
Take us out of here, man.
ThroughAtherapistDies.com. You can find blog entries for every episode. You can stream right from the website, or you can find us on just about any podcast platform. We have links to our social media on the website. We would love it if you would subscribe to our newsletter. Give us a 5-star review and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Please tell your friends about us if you're enjoying the show. And Whole Family Products link on the website to give us a little bit of support.
Want to know where we're going next?
Love to.
Stuck spots.
Oh, yeah, you said that earlier.
I did. I gave a little foreshadow in the middle there.
You'll be looking forward to it.
How do we fall into them? How do we deal with them? What really kind of are they probably? We'll figure out where we go with it, but let's deal with feeling stuck.
Should be a fun one.
All right, you guys have a great week.